Today, I'm going to look at a follow-on from last week. So we talked about frontal plane motion, side to side, the braking forces that help create that side bend, help create that effortless swinging of the club, that momentum, getting things started. But what I want to look at today is rotation. How do we create rotation from the ground? Because everybody thinks of rotation as pelvis, shoulders, drop the knee, move the hip back, and it's spiraling, and all these things, which are, okay, maybe great concepts, great analogies, but is it really tapping you into the feeling of these kinetics? Because force creates motion. We've got to attune ourselves to how we're moving to create these forces, not just the result of what these forces create. Because we can mimic any kind of movement. How many swings look nice but don't function? And how many swings look very individualistic, yet have their own style, yet are very, well, you have to look at all the world's kind of top players. They've all got their own style, very individual, yet they're all doing it their own way, and they're all performing at the top of the game. And this is something about golf. We've got to be careful, guys, that we don't get drawn in to the bell-shaped curve, the population curve. We don't want to be drawn to the mean, experiencing similar things, asking the same questions, because we're all working on similar things because that's what we're being fed. For example, if you've been to group coaching, often in a beginner lesson, they'll start with the grip, the stance, the aim, and the posture. But you only have to look at all the world's top players and they all do it different. Yet go to a beginner group session and the first thing is perfect grip, perfect stance. Yet how many perfect grips and stances do you see with the best performers in the world? They've all found their own way, they've found their own function, born out of the intention of playing the game, born out of the constraints. They've explored their movement, and then, in order for their movement to function to its optimal, the setup adapts, the grip changes, their alignment adapts to enable them to function. Whereas if we're all being taught the same thing, we're all going to probably experience similar issues. So I want to talk about today, rotation, torque from the ground. How do we create it? How do we change direction? How do we allow this golf club to accelerate away from us and plane itself? As you speed it up and if you let the swing weight go, it creates its own arc. It creates its own geometry. And if you oppose the forces and maintain that direction of opposition, then you're going to create a nice, smooth, consistent arc. Because that's what the top players are doing. They're opposing the forces and they're doing it through impact, post-impact. Most of us are stopping and hitting the ball. Once we've hit the ball, it's almost the end of the golf swing. We're not allowing our nervous system to experience what happens after impact. So the body now knows where it's going. It's going to accept this motion. It's going to let us go there. It's going to let us release. It's going to let us continue the swinging motion of the club, which naturally continues this arc and planes the action. So we've got to recognise where we're going. We've got to give the body its security blanket. It needs to know where it's going. We need to put these forces in to oppose so the body doesn't feel compromised and want to stop and pull the club towards it, pull the club off path, close the face excessively or open it up in an effort to just maintain balance. These issues where we lose the low point, suddenly now, early release, adding loft, put hanging back, the body's scared of where we're going, doesn't recognise where we're going to then push off and oppose these forces. Now, golf is a very rotary action. The ball's out in front, we're at the side, and it's on the ground, it's an incline. So how do we oppose this arc? Well, first of all, let's experience braking in this direction. So last week it was this direction, now we're going to look at this direction, sagittal plane. And this direction is flexion extension. But when you work unilaterally, so the feet work in opposition, it's a rotation. So we're going to use these linear forces when they're moving together. Okay, we're going to get flexion extension. When they're moving in opposition, we're going to start to get some rotational force torque from the ground. And then we can start to use the extension to transfer it. What I want you to think about is your toes. I want you to focus on the toes, okay? The start of the chain for propulsion. They're your accelerators. And your heels, consider your heels the brakes. So we're going to push from the toes back, and the heels brake us, okay? And the extension breaks that force. It's effortless. If I do it and I relax my arms, can you see I'm transferring the force now this way? My shoulders are shrugging without me trying. So I've got relaxed shoulders, neck, upper traps, shoulders, everything's relaxed here. And I'm moving back. Now, why might this be important for a golf swing? Well, it's super important with a club because we're swinging it that way. We can oppose the force we're creating with the club. Of course, we're rotating, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, because we're not just working in this plane. It's not just this, because if I just stay here and move back, I'm going to get this flipping action here. I'm relaxed, but I've got this flip. But when I introduce now the rotation, and this is what I call, it's like the MJ. I call this the MJ walk, okay? It's the moonwalk, and it's an amazing exercise for you because it's going to give you a feeling of the braking, the acceleration of the braking to rotate, load the hips, rotate the body. And we're just going to do it in isolation, one side to the other. I want you to push from the toe and snap the foot back. So we're just moving, and this is rotating us. You can even put a club in, but you wouldn't walk back doing this. Just do it in isolation. So we're going to practice the backswing first. Just feeling that ripping action. So it's like you're ripping the carpet with your spikes, but not by staying in. How do you rip it? You've got to push off. So you're unweighted as the foot moves. And you'll often see the players moving their feet, particularly like Scotty Scheffler and people like that. But that's after the event. That's the net result of the forces they've created and the reaction to the body motion they've created. I'm not saying we need to shuffle our feet around. I'm not saying we have to have really uncontrollable feet in our swing. We're using the body in a purposeful way. We're using these lower body dynamics to really tap into this very functional interaction with the ground to rotate. Feel that rotation. So what does this feel like for the follow through? This is a very different feeling. Notice now there ain't no flip. The club is getting thrown. Now this is a bit different, okay, on the way through. So lead side, what we're going to do is we're going to rip it back, and I want you to explore. Now be careful, work within your own capabilities. We don't want to introduce any potential injury. But now, notice where this foot goes when you really want to rotate the body. So I'm going to use the direction of travel of this foot. I'm going to push it behind me, and notice what it does to my pelvis. Suddenly, it opens me up. The structure stabilises itself. And as you push off, this goes back, this lengthens. What lengthens? You take a elastic band, stretch it, there's more tension. As you stretch it, it stabilises itself. So you're using the body's natural stabilising mechanisms by just being mindful of how you're using your interaction with the ground. It's pushing off and rotating. And we can practice that both in the backswing. Remember, that happens first, just split second. What you've got to do is let the club swing this way and then load with the opposite side first. Just drop and then pop. How do you feel this load? Notice what the pelvis does. The pelvis tilts. You get hip flexion extension. Sacrum goes back, pelvis tilts, anterior, posterior. And there's a push off through the hips. So we can sense the hips, how they contribute to this push off. So taking that into a full body rotation. In the last session we talked about here, the thorax, we talked about here, clavicle, centre of rotation, the shoulders. Look how easy this is to rotate from here. Now we can feel this from the ground. We can push off first, and it rotates us back. This happens last. if I use my upper body first and rotate, this goes the opposite way. If I go this way, the ball twists the other way. What we want is to use the ground first and be able to direct our forces. You can see then, that was the rip. And weight. So if you've got a GRF board, GRF system, fantastic exercise here. Drop and pop and rotate. So when we're rotating for the backswing, pushing forward, ripping back. Load, and as you push off, you're twisting clockwise. Downswing, change of direction, drop into your lead side. Now, push off, trail foot forward, lead foot back. And you're going to feel the motion required to create this directional force from the ground. It's flipped now, it's from the ground transferred through to the top. If you love the coaching and want to experience the effects of the training that you see with our pupils, you can purchase the GRFI system yourself by following the link in the video description. You'll get all the equipment and a 2-hour download covering all the fundamentals, exploring your movement and how you can use the ground and create those all-important ground reaction forces and transfer them through to clubhead speed and experience the gains that you're seeing in the videos. So you're letting the body rotate from the ground up, and then you can let it go. Feel the intensity of that pressure shift from front to back, back to front, the speed, the sharpness, the speed, agility, quickness, just at ground level like that. This is the speed we need to operate at with our pressure through the foot to allow us to rotate in the heel. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. There's been some really good exercises here for you to explore that rotation. And trust your body, push it to the limit, let yourself go, let the club react. Have some sessions on the range, spend a portion of your practice time on being more carefree, playful, childlike in how you're just applying yourself. Don't try and rip every golf shot down the stick and assess everything on how well the shot went. Don't assume because you get a great shot, the movement was great. Okay, it's kind of just compartmentalise your practice a little bit into, right, I'm going to work on a bit of movement stuff. I'm not going to be too fussed where this ball goes, I'm going to explore the movement. And then I can start to think about a bit more face and path, and then I can start to think about my start line. Now I can think about trajectory control. Design your practice, but give yourself ample opportunity at this time of year, winter time, off season. Explore your movement, start developing these patterns so you can start to develop the trust and then refine them over the coming months leading up to the season, so you're totally confident in letting it go on the golf course. Feedback through the comments, let me know if this is helping, maybe other questions you've got from these exercises or other aspects associated with this. There may be other aspects of these movement patterns that you're not quite sure of. Drop your comments below. It always gives me food for thought for future tutorials, and also just answering your questions every now and again when we get the opportunity. We like to answer your questions and help you maintain that progression with your practice. So have fun, guys. All the best. Let us know how you get on.